Chapter 31. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Absorbing the Damaged Core's Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, Record. Your continuous live stream is longer than 15 minutes. The random airdrop reward will be issued one day before the next disaster. After Su-Mo heard the notification prompt from the game panel, he decisively entered the settings interface and turned off the live stream. When he live streamed, every move he made was monitored by billions of people. If he was still in the modern age, he might laugh a few times and be happy that he was popular. However, now that he was in the ruthless and greedy doomsday world, the more he showed, the greater the danger he was in. After Su-Mo sped to the spot on the hill where Scarface died, he thought to himself, these people are going to be really hard to deal with. How troublesome. It only took a gentle pull on the trigger to kill someone, but dealing with those people was going to take some time. If it was a rainy night, it would have been better because his smell would not waft far. However, if it was a very sunny day, he was going to attract a large number of mutant creatures in a day or two. If things got worse, there might even be a plague outbreak. After Su-Mo opened up the creation page, he created another stone spear. As he held the stone spear and endured the disgust, he moved Scarface by his shirt with the spear and breathed a sigh of relief. In the modern world, he would not be brave enough to kill a chicken. He never expected that he was going to kill 5 people in the doomsday world. Although those people were bandits, the moral concepts established within the human's consciousness during the civilized age were still there. Hey, what's this? After dragging away Scarface's corpse, Su-Mo was surprised to find that below the spot where Scarface was lying face down, there was a tortoise shell that emitted a faint light. Isn't this what we get when we place our shelters when this whole thing started? After Su-Mo picked up the tortoise shell, he was pleasantly surprised and began to look at the tortoise shell's properties. Damaged safe house core. The safe house is bound to the player. Once the player chooses to place it on a spot, it will be bound to the ground and cannot be moved. When the player demolishes his own safe house, it will be damaged and cannot be placed onto another spot until it is repaired. All items of the player are stored in the core of the safe house after their death. Record. Player is detected to have a complete safe house core. Do you wish to absorb it? You can actually absorb the core of someone else's safe house. When he looked at the property on the game panel, Su-Mo quickly walked over to the other 3 guys. Sure enough, the guy with the glasses and the guy with the pockmarks also had a damaged safe house core under their faces. When he got closer to the mouse-face guy, he found a complete safe house core that had not been placed before. Great! When Su-Mo looked at the 3 damaged and 1 intact cores in his hands, he laughed out loud. A horse doesn't get fat without extra feed, and people don't get rich unless they're met with a windfall. These people have robbed and killed so many innocent poor people, and now they've fallen under my hands. This is an eye for an eye, I suppose. He chucked the 4 cores into his backpack. After that, he walked quickly to the side of the acid rain lake and began to dig a hole. After gaining some things, Su-Mo felt a bit lighter even though he was working hard on a dark rainy night. He could not wait to bury the corpses as soon as possible so that he could return to his shelter to absorb and see what happens. Since it had been overcast and raining for the whole day, the soil on the ground was softer. After half an hour, Su-Mo dug out a pit that was 2 meters wide, 2 meters long, and 1 meter deep. After he dragged all the corpses of the bandits, one by one, into the pit with his stone spear, Su-Mo quickly walked over to Huang Biao's body. Huang Biao, who was still struggling on the ground before, made no more noise and only left a deep handprint on the ground. After he moved his body with the tip of a spear, sure enough, there was also a damaged safe house core under Huang Biao's body. I can't bear to leave your corpse out in the wilderness after your leader came such a long way to send you your equipment. Anyway, be a good person when you reincarnate. After soaking in acid rain, Huang Biao's face rotted and did not look like a human anymore. He looked weird and terrifying, just like the zombies in the apocalyptic movies from America. He did not dare to look at his face up close and just dragged the grass raincoat on Huang Biao's body with the tip of his stone spear. Step by step, Su Mo dragged the man into the big pit. After pushing Huang Biao into the pit, Su Mo began to fill up the hole. Gradually, as the soil covered over and the rainwater binded it, the 5 people were left inside the pit forever. After he finished everything and shoved a branch on top to mark the spot, Su Mo went back from where he came from and arrived at the tunnel's entrance. The tunnel door made out of wooden planks was quite convenient when going out. By the time Su Mo returned, a lot of water had already seeped into the passage. When Su Mo looked at the tunnel entrance, he made some mental notes. If I want to travel a long distance, it would be a good choice to come out from this spot. Perhaps I can upgrade it. After he called out the survival system in his mind, the tunnel's property appeared. Passageway, description. A completed passageway upgrade option. Escapeway sections. Expansion, 5, material, 40, strength, 200, access door, 40, introduction. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. For the access door, I'll upgrade it into a stone material since I still have a lot of stones. As he laid down the stones gradually, the access door's survival points requirement began to go down rapidly. After 20 points, it stopped changing. I choose to upgrade the access door. After spending 20 points, a green light emitted from Su Mo's body. After 2 or 3 breaths, the wooden door with a large gap suddenly became the same stone door as his shelter's main entrance. It looked secure and rainwater could no longer seep inside. After Su Mo picked up a shovel and shoveled up a few scoops of dirt to cover up the stone access door, Su Mo returned to his shelter's main entrance with satisfaction. He could forget about using the passageway made for raids daily unless he wanted to travel long distances or conduct raids. I'll only use it when I need to. He would be able to reduce the effects of the attacks during critical moments like today. As for the problem of exposing his defenses during his live streams, it was not an immediate worry for now. After he went back to his main entrance, he looked at the bare stone walls that were excavated from both sides. Su Mo did not know whether to laugh or cry. His underground shelter became a normal ground shelter after being dug out by those people after a few hours. It's fine. I'll just leave it like that for now and I'll just have to wait until the rain stops to make some renovations. After he went around it sized up the excavated area, Su Mo yelled toward the shelter, "Oreo, open the door, I'm back." After he said that, he heard the sound of barking and scratching at the door. After a bang, the stone door cracked open. The cunning Oreo peeked through the crack for a while first before it opened it up. What a good and clever little doggy. Since Su Mo was wearing a raincoat, he could not pet Oreo's head. After motioning Oreo to move further, Su Mo closed the door, stood in the corner of the shelter, and took off his raincoat. In the raid just now, he made 2 plans in total. Plan A was him rushing out through the back door and while those people were unprepared, he would kill them abruptly by surprise. Plan B was if there was no chance for him to do that, he was going to get Oreo to make some noise at the door so that it would attract them over there, and he was going to use that opportunity to kill them. It was a pity that those people were a rag-tag group. Their combat abilities were extremely low, and they were not careful at all. That was why they probably did not expect that Su Mo would suddenly come out from behind to attack them. After taking off his raincoat, Su Mo turned around and sat down on the wooden bench. He looked at his brightly lit stone base and Oreo running to the table coyly. Su Mo immediately felt at ease. No one could have guessed it. An hour ago, he was just an ordinary person struggling to survive in the wasteland world. An hour later, he became the knight who took 5 lives, enforcing justice on behalf of heaven. After Su Mo took out the spoils of his fight, He held the tortoise shell with a rag in his left hand and had another rag in his right hand as he began to polish it carefully. With the rags polishing, the simple and unsophisticated tortoise shell started to shine like a jade. After polishing all the cores, Suemo picked up the damaged tortoise shell that he initially collected, and when he called out internally, he selected the game panel's fusion function. Let's do the fusion with this damaged core first. Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A huge gain. A diesel generator. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, record. Player is detected to have a complete safe house core. Do you wish to absorb it? When he saw the words jump out, Suemo concentrated and used his mind to click yes without hesitation. Suddenly, the tortoise shell on the hand began to shake violently. To be specific, the tortoise shell produced a resonance. The whole shelter seemed to be moving, with small tremors one after another. With each passing second, the frequency of the shelter's vibration seemed to be getting closer and closer to the frequency of the tortoise shell shaking in his hand. With his naked eye, he could see the tortoise shell begin to crack and melt, one piece at a time. They melted into a blue liquid, falling from Sumo's palm, and sliding all the way onto the stone floor. Boom! The earth began to tremble, and the entire shelter felt as if there was an earthquake taking place inside as it began to sway rapidly. The next moment, Suemo looked at the magical scene in front of him and was stunned. Record. You have successfully absorbed the damaged safe house core. L.C. Record. Your shelter area has increased. Record. Your current shelter area is 110 square meters. His originally familiar shelter went through a sudden metamorphosis. It was as if the shelter had eaten too much and grown fatter, with 10 square meters appearing out of thin air. In the extra space, there were a few things neatly arranged. Bark, bark, bark. Oreo, who was still lying on the ground and resting, looked like it had seen a ghost as it looked around at the extra space and barked due to the unfamiliar smell. Suemo walked quickly toward the extra space and began to look at the things on the ground. There were around a dozen items. The first was 3 shirts with blood stains on them. They were brightly colored and there was even a pink bear mask. Beside the clothes were 2 tools. A stone axe and a stone shovel. Compared with the rich and outspoken Suemo, the man's equipment looked pitiful. He could not believe where the guy got the confidence to try and raid his shelter. Fearing that there would be some hidden poison, Suemo did not dare to use his hands, so he cautiously picked up the clothes with a stone spear and uncovered the items hidden underneath. There were around a dozen more items as well. There was some beef jerky that he bought on the market on the first day before. It seemed like a lot and was at least 300 G. There were 4 boxes of milk, a whole loaf of bread, 2 corn sausages, old yogurt, and a bottle of unopened Pepsi. There were also 2 bottles of mineral water that have been opened but not finished yet. I've struck gold. I've struck gold. After using the game panel to confirm that items' properties were fine, Suemo looked incredibly happy. It was no wonder that those people did not choose to develop their own shelters normally and instead chose to steal from people. The person who steals would earn more than the person who worked hard. Just those items would sell for at least a few liters of water if they were listed on the trading market. Even so, they were priceless. The food currently sold in the market was mostly bread that required a lot of water to be edible and mutant beast meat that was dry and difficult to swallow. After days of looking through the listings, Suemo did not find any food item to splurge on the market. Unexpectedly, those boxes of items actually fell down from heaven for free. Since fusing a damaged core can increase 10 square meters to my base, I'll fuse all of them. After taking out the remaining 3 damaged cores and selecting them one by one, his safe house began to shake again. Record. You have successfully absorbed the damaged safe house core *3. Record. Your shelter area has increased. Record. Your current shelter area is 140 square meters. Record. Your shelter level has been upgraded. Please enter the game panel to check. After shaking for a while, at the same spot, a total of 40 square meters of space was added into the shelter, and the shelter which originally looked empty became quieter and more serene. There were a lot of things piled on the ground randomly. Just by looking at it, Sumo felt so happy that he felt like he was going to faint. At the innermost corner, there was a device that looked similar to his thick color television. Sumo was not unfamiliar with the device at all. It was exactly what he wanted for a long time, what he dreamt about at night, a generator. At that moment, Sumo could not suppress the excitement in his heart. It was as if he had seen his little lover as he walked quickly to the machine. It was painted sky blue throughout the entire body. There were 3 thick black iron pipes surrounding the main body of the generator, which acted as a side frame to protect it against dust. When he lowered his head and saw the generator's main body, Sumo's eager heart immediately became cold. There was a label that said that it was a Siemens Wuxi diesel generator, and those people probably got it after killing mutant beasts or from robbing someone. However, the problem was that a spear had pierced through the generator's fuel tank and there was a large hole, exposing the inside of the fuel tank. As Sumo crouched in front of the generator, he began to carefully recall the generator principle he had seen in the miscellaneous books from his university's library. It was simple for a generator to generate electricity. In the diesel engine cylinder, clean air filtered by the air filter is fully mixed with the high-pressure atomized diesel fuel sprayed from the fuel injector. Under the upward squeeze of the piston, the volume is reduced, and the temperature rises rapidly, reaching the ignition point of the diesel fuel. The diesel fuel is ignited, and the mixed gas burns violently. The volume expands rapidly, pushing the piston down, and is called work done. Each cylinder performs moves in a certain order, and the thrust from the piston becomes the force that rotates the crankshaft by pushing the force through the connecting rod, thereby driving the crankshaft to rotate. By installing the brushless synchronous power generator coaxially with the crankshaft of the diesel engine, the rotation of the diesel engine will drive the rotor of the generator. By using the principle of electromagnetic induction, the generator will induce an electromotive force and current will be generated to the load of the closed circuit. After thinking about it, Sumo breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the thing that was kaput was not the most important part, the current control device. If that part broke, the generator would have been useless. Since it was just a hole in the fuel tank that was damaged, he just needed to repair it with a few points. He stared intently and focused his attention as Sumo called up the system internally. After that, he looked at the diesel generator. Diesel generator, damaged, efficiency. 300 kilowatts, 300 kilowatt-hours at full load, fuel consumption. 230 grams per kilowatt-hour, 82 L/H at full load, description. A diesel generator produced by Siemens Group in Jiangsu, Wuxi that has never been used. The circuit is functional, but the fuel tank is damaged. Upgrade option 1. Replace and repair the core components of the generator, enhance the efficiency of the generator's power supply, reduce the power consumption of the generator. Survival points required, 1680. Upgrade option 2. Change the working mode of the generator into a biomass fuel power generator. Survival points required, 6,500. Introduction. Am I yours? You're my Ulume. No, no, no. I want to be your generator. D*MN, that's so expensive. 1,680 points. I'll have to save up my points for at least 10 days to half a month to upgrade it. After he shook his head, he gave up the crazy idea of accumulating his survival points to upgrade the generator. Sumo began to ask for another upgrade option internally. By changing it into single-category small function upgrade options, despite it costing more and not as cost-effective as the overall upgrade in the long run, he had a shortage of survival points, so it was a good way to solve his urgent needs. Even though it's going to be more expensive, so be it. As long as I can repair it, I'll be able to develop my base at double the speed. A burst of light flashed, and the original upgrade options began to change. Diesel generator, damaged, efficiency. 300 kilowatts, 300 kilowatt hours at full load, fuel consumption. 230 grams per kilowatt hour, 82 L/H at full load, upgrade. Repair, 130, increase volume, 50, increase conversion efficiency, 300, change material, 420, change energy supply mode, biomass, 4,450. It needs 130 to repair it. The price was reasonable and was not too high, but Su-Mo was not able to afford that much for now. Today, he had a total of 153 points. It cost him 20 points to upgrade his raincoat, and after using 65 points to upgrade the passageway, he was only left with 68 points. We'll have to wait until tomorrow to repair it, then. After Su-Mo calmed down the excitement and anxiety in his heart, he began to gather his supplies and count the spoils of his battle. Chapter 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shelter upgrade, commission the design. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Huang Biao's core clearly had more items compared to the other three. It almost filled up the 10 square meter expansion. When Su-Mo looked at it, he saw 3 large bags of biscuits that were around 5 or 6 kilograms. The biscuits were very similar to the biscuits sold in supermarkets. After eating a piece, Su-Mo nodded in satisfaction. The taste of the biscuit was similar to normal packed biscuits. There was a refrigeration function in the storage space. When things were placed inside, it was equivalent to the schr. Cat state, where it only appeared when Su-Mo was observing it. He closed up the bags of biscuits and put them together. Su-Mo saw 2 big buckets in the corner as well. After walking toward it to take a closer look, Su-Mo was overjoyed. Everything came in a set. When Huang Biao found the generator, it must have come with the 2 buckets of 200 L diesel fuel as well. I thought I was going to make my own biodiesel, but I didn't expect that I'd be so lucky. Homemade biodiesel would easily damage the insides of the generator, but if he used the system, he would just need to spend some survival points to repair it. Even so, if he could get diesel fuel during the earlier, more difficult stages now, he would surely be able to trade diesel fuel in the future. After spending 2 hours sorting out the items, he took the unusable items outside and dug a pit. After he buried them, Su-Mo opened up the chat channel and randomly looked for a dead person's gray profile picture and started writing out a message record. 1 generator, 200 liters of diesel fuel. 6 kilograms of biscuits, 2 kilograms of bread, 2.5 L of unopened purified water, 800 g of beef jerky, 7 cartons of milk, 3 corn sausages, 1 container of old yogurt, 2 bottles of Pepsi, 2 packs of Lay's potato chips. 1 opened bag of salt, confirmed to be non-toxic, 1 small bag of unopened chili oil. 1 rechargeable flashlight, fully charged, 1 extremely bulky mace, 1 pair of unworn sneakers, size 43. 15 units of wood, 19 units of plant fiber, 30 units of stone, 3 units of iron blocks, 1 unit of copper blocks. And a map that seems to be for the nearby terrain, important. After listing down all his items in one breath, Su-Mo just looked at the numbers on the game panel and felt extremely satisfied and happy. Of course, at a time like that, Su-Mo did not hesitate to share his happiness. He took out 2 corn sausages from his supply pile and took them apart. He took 1 big bite and threw the other sausage to the side for the drooling husky, Oreo. Good doggy. Now that I have you, I hope you can double what I earn in the future. Oreo, who was on the side, eating with its mouth full of drool, howled cheerfully. He had a taste of what it would be like and was going to work hard. Su-Mo was in a good mood and called out the game panel to see if he could upgrade his shelter. After the 4 damaged safe house cores were absorbed, the upgrade system was triggered. Before this, there were no levels for the shelter displayed, but currently, an extra level tab was displayed at that moment. Personal shelter, level. LV1 description. Shelter made of stone. Very strong with good security. Possesses a unique effect in isolating moisture and retaining heat. Space. 140, 4.2 m high, level of integrity. 100% facilities. Iron stove, bed, large-scale vegetable culture medium, psychic energy well water extractor, dining table. Currently available permissions. Reconstruct the shelter layout and automatically generate partition walls, 1. Time use, so please adjust carefully. I can't believe I can create a partition wall. Now this is a shelter, that's the life I'm talking about. As Su-Mo looked at the notification prompts on the game panel, his eyes sparkled. The empty shelter was still a big flat floor. The dark corners that no light shone on would be the first things anyone saw when they walked in. It was fine during the day, but when night time came, it made his blood freeze. If a person never ate supper, he would never get fat, and a horse would never get fat without extra feed. Just by slaughtering a group of scoundrels, he gained that much. Su-Mo could not help but even wanted to start a live stream to attract another wave of hatred so that more gangsters would be attracted to come over to him and deliver his supplies. I can only build this level once, so I'll have to plan this carefully. Su-Mo looked at the plan on the panel. When he thought about it, a box popped up on the interface. The 3D image of the shelter happened to be in the box at that moment. It had the floors, the stone walls, up, down, left, right, the entire thing. Su-Mo briefly browsed through all the functions, closed the interface, and opened up the chat interface. After that night's battle, Su-Mo had completely cleared up the confusion in his heart about other people outside. Being in the wasteland, in the big pot of bad, he realized that the more he wanted to stay out of things, the more he was going to fall into the cage. To completely close oneself and treat the shelter as a lone island in the ocean was the stupidest thing one could do. After he found out about the truth, he knew what he had to do. The Huaxia shelter that he saw in the daytime had an extremely ingenious architectural style and overall construction method. He knew that there must be an expert behind it. For a professional design work like that, Su-Mo decided to contract it out so that he could maximize the use of the space in the shelter. Finally, there was an opportunity to rebuild it. Su-Mo had been very dissatisfied with the existing shelter structure, but he did not know where to start. The first was the main entrance, which was a long staircase. That kind of staircase was fine during a normal day, but once someone broke through the main entrance and rushed in, both sides would have to have a hand-to-hand combat. There was no safety aspect to it at all, and there should be at least 2 buffer zones or even 3. In the house, there was a 30-square-meter culture medium placed in the center of the base. Besides taking up a lot of space, it might also affect the subsequent development in particular. In addition to the renovation, Su-Mo had another idea. After the contact he had that night, he realized that if anyone surrounded him from the top, he would have the risk of a surprise attack if he decided to leave, since he lived underground. Once or twice was fine, but if it kept happening, it would be big trouble for him. Therefore, it was also necessary to build a buffer zone on the ground. He could not completely give up control of the ground above in the early stage just because he had an underground shelter. After he decided on his idea, Su-Mo clicked onto the private message function and started his first historical call according to the contact information he found on the Huaxia shelter during the daytime. The person who answered the call was the same little lady who spoke from the shelter during the day. Shenku. Su-Mo, hello, I'm Su-Mo from Huaxia and I'd like to make a trade with your shelter. Is that okay? Not long after he sent the message, he got 3 very anxious replies. Before Su-Mo could see what they said, the person on the other side immediately video called him. After thinking about it, Su-Mo did not reject the call. Since he had shown his face to everyone in the world, there was no need for him to keep anything back at that moment. The call was connected. Shinku's face appeared on the screen. "Hello, Su-mo, I'm the person in charge of the 79th Regiment of the 13th Army for Disaster Resistance. We've agreed to your trading request. What kind of trade are you looking for?" When Shinku looked at Sumo's face on the screen, she tried her best to suppress the shock she was feeling and tried not to show it. In her view, the first thing that caught her eye was his eye-catching generator and the two large buckets of diesel next to it. Then came the extravagant cola, bread, biscuits, and other daily necessities. In the afterglow, she also saw a corner of the culture medium. The opulence in his shelter was too much of a shock for Shinku after living in the doomsday world. As for Sumo's handsome face, he looked even more mysterious with the pile of supplies behind him. "I'd like to get someone to help me design a structure for my underground shelter. It would be best if I got a blueprint design for it." When Shinku heard what Su-mo said, she nodded hurriedly. "Our shelter has a well-known former Huaxia designer, A.R. Shen, who's also my little uncle. Is it okay if I ask him to design it for you?" "Sure, no problem. You guys should know the structure of an underground shelter, right? And according to..." After Su-mo heard that it was A.R. Shen, he was a little surprised, nodded calmly, and began to talk about his requirements. On the other side, Shinku immediately called her little uncle, Shenitian, over so that Su-mo could communicate with him face to face. After a while, the two started discussing the details. "Okay, we've understood your requirements. I'll hand the design to you the day after tomorrow at the latest. Don't worry, I'll follow the wartime rules and strictly abide by the confidentiality agreement." Shenitian was extremely straightforward. After discussing Su-mo's requirements, he once again picked up his grass umbrella from the side of the table and swaggered away. He was a dependable person. Su-mo had also heard about the professional architect before. Many super-tall skyscrapers in their country, including the 840-meter tower, were designed by him. Therefore, a design for his shelter should be no problem. After Shenitian left, Shinku returned to the middle of the screen. "A.R. Shen didn't give me a quotation. Do you know how much supplies it will cost for a design drawing like that?" When Su-mo saw that Shinku was too shy to bring that up, he said it in a direct manner. Regarding the quotation, he believed that Shinku would never demand an exorbitant price. She did not ask many questions from the beginning, so Su-mo knew that the Huaxia shelter was sincere. However, the next moment, Shinku's words made Su-mo extremely uneasy. "Mr. Su-mo, since this is just a design drawing, it doesn't use up any supplies. Therefore, as our first trade and out of the sincerity of Huaxia shelter, we hope that you can help some people from Huaxia who's facing difficulties. Even in the wasteland world, we have to support each other and push on. Of course, as for the scoundrels you met tonight, you have 100% of your independent defense rights and we support you for doing what you did, Mr. Su." Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. We want to return to Earth alive. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. After Su-mo saw Shinku's determined eyes and concise military style, he nodded, supposedly agreeing to Shinku's conditions. The next second, Shinku, who looked serious, could not hold back the seriousness of her face anymore and a bright smile appeared on her pretty face. "The almighty Su, now that the shelter's trade is over, can I do some private trades with you?" A smirk appeared on her charming little face. A look that no one could refuse. "Go ahead." Su-mo smiled faintly. There was an inexplicable, indifferent, free and easy look on his face. "I want to trade 1L of psychic energy water with you. The trading items are wires and a mechanical controller for programming the control. And I'll also add a secret bit of information for you." When Su-mo heard Shinku's words, he turned his head and realized that he had exposed the generator behind him in the video call. Su-mo smiled and shook his head. It was no wonder that Shinku would propose such a deal. That was to meet his development requirements. Don't worry, I'll tell my little uncle to design a circuit plan as well when he designs the blueprint for you. When Shinku saw Su-mo's expression, she immediately continued nervously, for fear that Su-mo would reject her the next moment. 1 liter of psychic energy water might be extremely precious for others, but they would never know that his precious little thing was producing 7 liters a day in his shelter. The inequality brought about by unknown information always gave him an advantage in trades. Su-mo slightly smiled and said, "Fine, deal. That's not a problem. As for secret information, how much do you know about the ruins?" After thinking about it, Su-mo was still really curious about Liangfang town. His ruin was different from what everyone else knew about ruins. There was a lot of fantastic loot inside, and as long as he could put together a weapon and get through a room, his loot was unimaginable. When Shinku saw that Su-mo agreed, she pulled back the hair that hung in front of her face, and after thinking for a moment, she said calmly, "We also organized a group of people to investigate the ruin. So far, we know quite a bit of information about it, but this isn't worth anything because everyone will find it out sooner or later. According to the information we've discovered so far, there are 3 types of relics. The first type is the foggy relics that everyone has mentioned in the chat channel. The places where players go when they enter this kind of relics are strange, but according to the information we have gathered, most of them enter into a prehistoric civilization on Earth when they enter this time of relic. However, there is insufficient investigation about it, so I can't say for sure what ancient civilization it is. The second type of relic is, well, like the treasure stories in novels that you'd heard of. Us Earthlings may not be the first species to be exiled here to participate in this survival game. There are other species that have been here before, so for some people that did not survive through the natural disasters, their shelters that are left here end up becoming a fixed relic. For the third type, we suspect that there are other civilizations merging with the wasteland world we are currently in. As to which civilization it is and what their purpose is, we don't have a definite conclusion for now as we have insufficient evidence. We also have insufficient information collected, so we'll just have to wait for technology to make a comeback before we can take a better look at it. Shinku was very detailed and explained the 3 types of relics that they had discovered so far clearly. After Su-mo silently recorded all the information again by private messaging a dead person, he nodded and that signaled the completion of the trade. "Okay, I'll get you your wires and controller later." With a pleasantly surprised look on Shinku's face, she stood up with a bounce. After the 2 of them said goodbye to each other, they hung up their video call. After a while, Shinku sent her trade request and after confirming that it was correct, Su-mo uploaded 1,100 milliliters of psychic energy water. He also left a message. "Thank you for your information and your observation. Please take this 100 milliliters as a private gift for you. Stay alive for everyone." A burst of light flashed, and the trade was completed. In the huge Huaxia shelter. In an inconspicuous small house, Shinku raised her arms and breathed out. She uploaded all the wires into the trading system in one breath. He. Who said I'm just a girl who can only work as a civil servant? With a silly simpering smile, Shinku confirmed the trade and got the psychic energy water. When she saw the amount that Su-mo traded along with his message, a burst of sadness suddenly came up inexplicably. A few drops of moving tears suddenly welled in her eyes, wetting her face that had turned yellow and dark because of dehydration. When she realized she was crying, the first thing the girl did was not wipe away her tears. Instead, she licked her tears greedily with her cracked up, bloody, dry lips. Then, the bright girl stopped crying, took her umbrella, and rushed out of the house. She shouted, "Anyone who has a cold can stop worrying tonight because we traded some psychic energy water. Everyone's going to get some before going to bed." Wow! Psychic energy water. For minor sickness, even medicines were not as effective as the legendary psychic energy water. In the camp, the people who were still working hard at night looked up with their eyes full of gratitude and joy. They did not shout. They did not cheer. That was because after they entered the shelter from the first day, the rules they received were: save your energy. Don't shout. Don't cry. We don't have enough food and water, but will go back to Earth alive. Sigh. It seems like I'm a little socially challenged now with no one to talk to. I only have a silly dog. Humans really are social animals. When he looked at a large number of wires on the ground for building circuits, Suemo felt like going back onto his small bed to just lay there. The silly Oreo also ran over at that moment, jumped onto the bed, and jumped back. The black and white dog had a provocative look on its face. Silly dog, are you unhappy just because I called you a silly dog? Watch what I can do. After it jumped off the bed, the man and the dog began to chase each other in the shelter. Sumo's hearty laughter echoed throughout the shelter. After chasing Oreo for a while, Suemo panted and helplessly sat on the bench after he watched Oreo still running high-spiritedly ahead. Oreo was still clowning around in the distance, and when it saw that Suemo was not chasing him anymore, it showed its husky teeth and barked happily. Don't worry. I'll make sure I stay alive for you, for myself, for my parents and sister. Suemo said as he looked at Oreo firmly. However, when Suemo looked at Oreo, he had a rare touch of gentleness. After resting for a while, he spread out the map that he looted on the table. Suemo carefully identified the location of the ruin. According to what Shinku said, it seems that the place marked on this map should be the place where Huang Biao and the others found the ruin. Huang Biao and his party's starting point should be 20 kilometers away from the ruins. If these 3 lines are my base, then the ruin should be west to me. 3.5 kilometers away. The marks on the map were drawn using the most primitive pictographic method. Thanks to them for finding a paper map to record it down. In addition to that, they marked it quite clearly, too. Otherwise, the average person would not be able to understand such an abstract map. The spots marked X should be the bases that they attacked. Hiss. What a bunch of cruel beast men. After looking, Suemo suddenly realized that the 5 of them were robbing anyone that they came across. The red crosses on the map lined up into a straight line, and there were as many as 16 in total. Maybe they didn't know that a person dropped a damaged safe house core after dying. Even so, it was useless for them even if they knew it, because only a placed safe house can absorb these cores. When I'm equipped, maybe I can travel west to see if those cores are still there. Suemo had a lot of time to think about the acid rain disaster the whole day. As an ordinary person without any subject knowledge advantage, he could only rely on hard work in the doomsday world. Not only must he actively inquire about information, but he also had to take the initiative to strengthen himself. When he looked at the treasure icon on the map, Suemo curled up the corner of his lips, stood up, and looked to the west. Let's see how sacred my journey to the west will be when the time comes in 2 days. Chapter 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The beginning of the end of the world. Big Update 1.0. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Today marks the 6th day in the wasteland. Doomsday Calendar, Month 1, Day 6. Current shelter members. Suemo Oreo. The disaster isn't over yet, so it's fine if I lay on my bed and sleep in, right? I mean, I don't have to catch the 7 o'clock bus anymore. Oreo's sleeping. Look at its drool. I wonder what delicious food Oreo is dreaming about. What a silly dog. Now that I've gotten a lot of supplies for the shelter and I'm about to get electricity, I have to definitely keep going. You can do it, Suemo. After opening his private chat message and recording his empty nester's diary for the 6th day, Suemo turned off the game panel. Even if he killed 5 people in a row last night, he still slept until it was almost 8 o'clock. As he laid on the soft and warm little bed, listening to the thinly scattered and soothing rain dripping outside, Sumo quietly waited for the disaster to end. Outside the shelter, the terrifying acid rain that lasted 30.6 hours was about to come to an end. When it was 8 o'clock, the system's calculation notification prompt sounded on time. Doomsday Calendar Month 1 Day 6, an unknown disaster struck. You felt very secure in your safe shelter, survival points +5, you upgraded a set of simple disaster-resistant equipment, survival points +2, when you were out on patrol, you detected a group of malicious people. You had a keen sense of observation, survival points +5, you opened up a second passage for the shelter, survival points +20, you killed 5 bandits to protect your safety and to defend the ownership of your shelter, survival points +35, you showed your face to 1 billion people or more. And they have a deep impression of the name Sumo, survival points +200, you seized a lot of supplies and enriched your shelter, survival points +10, you kept your humanity as a human being because you know that you are not a mad beast. You have people you care about, people you want to protect, and you want to go back to Earth alive, survival points +25, scanning host survival environment. Survival points evaluation in progress. 53 survival points gained today. Total calculation. Survival points +365 remaining survival points. 433, phew, that's a lot. A wave of sudden wealth. When Sumo saw this total calculation of points, he sat up and his heart was beating frantically and wildly. Every day, he would only get 100-something points, like using a pearl of toothpaste to brush his teeth. A sudden wave of windfall of 400 points made Sumo feel as if he was in a dream. Live streaming in front of 1 billion people, who remembered my name got me 200 points. So, is the system encouraging me to show off more? When Sumo saw what gave him the most points, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Is this real? I guess it is. Compared with the extremely dangerous life and death battle, a live stream brought him such a high income, so it was a no-brainer. Phew, now that we have enough survival points, we can upgrade the generator today. He got dressed and got up. After pouring out today's accumulated psychic energy water into the water tank, Sumo began to rinse his mouth after scooping up a full bottle of water with a wooden cup. Gargle gargle. He spat the water to the edge of the vegetable culture medium after rinsing his mouth, scooped up 1.5 liters of psychic energy water to water the vegetables, and just like that, his tending work for the day was completed. The whole time, he did it in a sacred mood. Sumo quickly walked to the part where the generator was placed, looked at the damaged fuel tank under the generator, and concentrated his thoughts. Diesel generator, damaged, efficiency. 300 kilowatts, 300 kilowatt hours at full load, fuel consumption. 230 grams per kilowatt hour, 82 L/H at full load, upgrade. Repair, 130, increase volume, 50, increase conversion efficiency, 300, change material, 420, change energy supply mode, biomass, 4450. I choose to repair it. Love is a flash of green light. TN, song lyrics for Green Light by Stephanie Sunday. As he said that, a green light emitted from his body contained Sumo's deep love for the generator. As he stroked the outer part of the generator, Sumo's eyes were full of affection. Any man would love a wild machine like you. Gradually, the generator fuel tank, which had a hole, began to deform slightly under the touch of the green light. Rows of silver dots appeared next to the fuel tank out of thin air. Under the restraint of the green light, they stuck onto the damaged part of the fuel tank. The hole that was as big as a fist quickly closed up and the green light disappeared after 3 to 5 seconds. The generator's fuel tank was repaired and looked brand new. Diesel generator, normal, efficiency. 300 kilowatts, 300 kilowatt-hours at full load, fuel consumption. 230 grams per kilowatt-hour, 82 L/H at full load. Sumo laid carefully on the generator and tried to remember every small tip as well as the easiest way to turn it on. The generator's fuel consumption at full load was extremely terrifying. With the current diesel reserve he had, it would be exhausted in less than 3 hours on full load. Originally, Sumo was worried that he would not be able to control the output power after turning it on. However, after learning how to operate it, he discovered that diesel generators had a clutch and a throttle. A complete set of control systems was written completely in the generator program. As long as the power was set manually, the output intensity would be able to be controlled, which was extremely convenient. After learning how to operate it, Sumo opened up the fuel tank and began to pour diesel fuel into it. Boom! Rumble, rumble, rumble. When he heard the sound above the fuel tank working, it indicated that the output power was stable and worked. After that, Sumo quickly turned off the machine and spoke a little excitedly. If I get any weapons or devices that require electricity, I'll be able to boldly upgrade them. The choices he had included electric spears and electric automatic crossbows. After getting the design drawing and planning for the interior design of his shelter, he would be able to distribute the wires to each room after he get a set of batteries. If he ever finds a light bulb, he could finally retire his torch at night. After he sat back on his stool, Sumo was still not able to calm down for a long time. For modern humans, electricity has long been an indispensable thing in life. Even if he did not have any electrical equipment yet, as long as there was a generator, his future goal was very clear: to look for electrical equipment. To build a super shelter that ran mainly on electricity. As his mood surged upward, Sumo held back his excitement. He took out some biscuits, crushed Oreo's portion and soaked it in water. As the scent of the broken biscuits and the fragrance of the psychic energy water mixed together, Oreo, who had been barking at the door, was immediately attracted to the scent. After that, it laid on the ground and licked wildly at its food bowl. When Sumo saw how much Oreo was enjoying its food, he got a little appetite as well. He took out a biscuit, poured out a glass of psychic energy water, and finished his breakfast. Since it was still raining outside, Sumo decided to use that time to start his daily training and trained Oreo how to work with him as well. Bit by bit. When it was almost 12 o'clock, the dark clouds in the sky began to quickly dissipate. A ray of golden sunlight appeared from the sky and shone onto the ground, illuminating every dark corner. When it was time, it was as if the system panel had a convulsion and began to broadcast and send the messages to everyone. Record. The first disaster has ended. The total number of deaths at the end of this disaster: 145547893 people, record. The novice disaster is over. The announcement panel will be officially disabled. Please observe the panel function notification prompts in time. Record. The novice period is over. The first version update has started by default. Record. Update completed. Record. The first disaster points have been recorded and they have been issued according to the shelter's disaster.resistant property rankings and disaster.resistant performance. Record. Trans system update. Every time there is a trade request, a certain amount of disaster resistance points must be paid as a handling fee based on the weight and property of the item. Record. Open Secret Realm Trading. The Secret Realm is automatically opened one day before each disaster, and channel members of the same area can bring resources when entering the Secret Realm for trading. Trading in the Secret Realm prohibits fights and is absolutely safe. Record. Update on the inventory function mode. The first-time payment of 100 disaster resistance points will allow you to redeem 1 cubic meter of storage space. After that, the point requirement is doubled every time. Record. Update on the private message function. Adding a friend for the first time requires 1 point. You may only chat after the addition is successful. Record. Update on the creation system. The following weapons are deleted: torches, wooden doors, wooden boxes, grass raincoats. When creating items, disaster points are required and adjusted according to the difficulty of creating the items. Record. It was detected that the fatality rate exceeded the prediction. Automatic adjustment of the disaster warning time. 15 days. Record. It was detected that the fatality rate exceeded the prediction. We will start putting more people in. 51:17. The launch time will be completed before the end of the second disaster. Record. All major regional channels will be reintegrated. After each disaster, channels with less than 1,000 people will be automatically integrated. After all the notification prompts sounded 3 times in a row, the game panel was officially opened. Wow! In an instant, all the lucky surviving humans flooded the chat channels, blasting the world channel and regional channels. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rule change. Second round of natural disaster. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. No way. I can understand why you put a limit on all items, but why apply it to the creation function? Even a wooden spear costs me 1 disaster point, yet you're only giving me 13 points. The end of mankind has come. This damn game sure is up to no good. It's coming up with ways to kill us. Bring down the game's dominance. This world should let the people make their own decisions. Hurrah! You need points to trade now. A handling fee of 3 points will be charged for something weighing 4 kilograms. Why don't they just rob us? Huge reward. My mother has been sent to XX position. Is there anyone in the vicinity? Help me take care of her. She has no points. We can't private message each other. We're dead meat. Without a storage space, my meat will rot in a few days. Looking for someone kind to team up with. My location is probably in XX. Anyone nearby who's interested can just private message me. Sitting inside the shelter, which was full of items from the inventory, Sumo read through the shelter's upgrade announcements with a grimace. The change was a big step forward in making the somewhat gamified survival world real. The creation system was cancelled, and the torch that burned for 12 hours with 1 piece of wood and 2 plant fibers disappeared. Other creation options such as providing materials to create buggy items were gone, leaving only the necessary tools and weapons, which could only be created by providing points. Trading needs points, inventory needs points, creating needs points, private messaging need points. You need points for everything. Disaster points were all the update announcements talked about. Everyone thought that the days where money-troubled heroes were gone forever, but did not expect it to return in such a ridiculous way. Opening the system interface, and Sumo saw his points in a bright spot in the lower right corner. 632 points. It's a good thing I upgraded the shelter first and got a ranking. The first place gets 400 points. What a steal. After surveying the cost of all the items, Sumo's tensed heart relaxed. Because he was 1 step in front of everyone and alone, he got to enjoy all the disaster points and was extremely rich in the eyes of others. Until another further major change, Sumo could still use the creation system and the trading system. As for the others, the end of the novice period had forced many people hiding in the shelter to face the harsh reality. It was time to step outside the shelter and explore the wilderness. The most lethal part of all these changes for Sumo was the big cut to the storage space. The previous storage system did not care about space. No matter how big the item being stored in the inventory was, it was counted as a unit. For example, it was convenient how he could store the stones and iron resources he had into one inventory tab. After the change, at least he could not store items as unruly as before, throwing in a few dozen units of resources all at once. After clicking on the space icon in the inventory, Sumo had an idea. Pay 100 disaster points and activate storage space. As if buying inventory expansion roles in some underground city game, Sumo's gaze seemed to silently penetrate the space and came into a small space of 1 meter in length, width and height. Record. Your disaster points. 100. Your storage system's current volume. 1 cubic meter. After activating the storage system, the specific method of use remained unchanged. You only need to focus on an item for 1 second to absorb the ownerless item. The absorbed item could also reappear in Sumo's hand or 50 centimeters from where it needed to be placed within a second. He switched to the trading channel and tried it out. Sumo dismissed the idea of continuing to sell water. The current trading system calculated their fee by weight, with a starting price of 2 points for the first 3 kilograms and 1 point for each subsequent 1 kilogram. It meant that the idea of massively hoarding resources through the trading system had been invalidated. The ultimate goal of the game panel was to promote each regional channel to communicate with each other and have resources they could bring into the trading secret realm. Sure enough. This isn't a simple survival game. Fortunately, my sister's 16, and my parents are 54, so I don't have to worry about them being sent in during this disaster. Otherwise, with the current exploration progress, I'll have to risk my life. After observing the chat between World Channel and Regional Channel for a while, the tension in Sumo's heart came back. After exiting to the upper right corner of the game panel, a number 15 and a snowflake icon appeared in the area where the disaster was displayed again. When Sumo focused on the number of days, a single line of prompt popped up. Countdown to the next disaster event outbreak. 15 days, disaster event. Blizzard, 20 degrees below zero for 72 hours, F*CK 20 degrees below zero. Is this game F*King out of their mind? The black paper and white text on the panel obviously would not change the slightest bit because of Sumo's anger. How can ordinary people survive a sudden blizzard just after acid rain? Sumo suppressed his anger, and his face was flushed. The first acid rain disaster was a difficult disaster for the underground shelters. This storm was going to be an extreme test for the on-the-ground shelters. Explorations, access to food, and above all, the need to keep warm could be daunting challenges for the on-the-ground shelters once the temperature dropped and the weather was cold. 72 hours. Sumo's teeth were clattering. Currently, the underground shelter was 140 square feet. Its corresponding temperature would be much lower than other underground shelters. If he could not find proper heating in half a month, he would probably. With this in mind, Sumo impatiently closed the game panel and began to think about how to respond to the disaster 15 days later. The disasters in survival games were too frequent. If it was a disaster every month, Sumo had the confidence to get back to the electric era with the survival points in less than a year. However, the second disaster was just 15 days away and had disrupted his development plans. I'll go out and collect trash tomorrow. No, today. I must find heating facilities as soon as possible. With disaster looming, Sumo had no intention of waiting for the rain to dry up. After spending another 200 points and upgrading the storage system to 2 cubic meters, Sumo began to move the clutter on the floor. First, he moved all the stones and irons to the innermost corner of the shelter. Then he used 8 units of wood to make wooden boards to build an ugly storage locker and put all the food and resources into it. All that was left on the floor was some clutter. Ha! Isn't this the shelter's intact core? Picking up the glowing turtle armor on the ground, Sumo touched his forehead. He had too many things to work on every day. Before he could fuse the core last night, the generator captured his attention. Now it seemed to be a lucky coincidence. The shelter was already big enough, and the supplies were not enough to take up all the space. If it continued to expand, the temperature in the shelters was bound to fall further. He would be forced to suffer in silence by then. Carefully putting away the turtle armor in the storage system and putting all the clutter to the corner, Su-mo began to prepare what he would take with him to explore the ruins today. It was urgent to explore the outside world, and a natural disaster was around the corner. Chapter 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The first time, going on a long trip, translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The vast wasteland world. Not only unknown underground ruins but also the nearby landscape was all a blank to Su-mo. Bring a bottle of mineral water, a bottle of psychic energy water, 50 crossbow arrows, a Japanese oak spear, bring. The mace too. Bring some materials in case I need them. Su-mo stuffed it with items, piece by piece. Going out to explore was not a child's game. You had to be fully geared up to treat Doomsday with the highest level of respect. Having gathered everything, Su-mo opened the shelter's main door. It happened to be noon. The sun descended to the world like a god, shining bright. However, the time was too short, and the rain on the ground had not evaporated. There were potholes and water everywhere. I wonder if the mutant beasts have survived in this environment. Su-mo's expression changed. His mind began to recall the black dog he had met in the ruins of Liangfang town. If the mutants in the wasteland were to turn out that way, it was probably nothing less than the coming extreme cold disaster for mankind. It was either that the mutant beasts would die like humans when they come in contact with the rain. Or Su-mo hoped it was the former. After checking out his surroundings to make sure nothing was wrong, Su-mo returned to the shelter, grabbed plant fibers, and began weaving a raincoat for Oreo. There was a lot of water on the ground. It was lethal upon contact with flesh. He had to rely on Oreo's detection and warning ability on outdoor explorations. It did not take long. After putting it in the wardrobe and spending 10 survival points to make the same thing, a brand new raincoat for dogs left the factory was ready. Oreo, who had been stuck in the shelter for 2 days, jumped up and down with joy when it saw its new clothes. After putting on its raincoat, it ran out of the shelter and began sniffing around. Seeing that, Su-mo closed the shelter main door. After making sure he had everything, he turned around to go back to the second passage and climbed up it. The shelter main door's current design was still stupid. It could only be closed and open on the inside, not on the outside. It was a good thing there was a second passageway. Otherwise, he was finished if someone robbed his house when he was out on a long trip. Climbing out of the shelter's second passage and opening a stone door covered with a layer of soil, Su-mo reached the back of the hill. The acid rain lake sparkled in the scorching sun. After taking a second look at the place where he buried the men last night and making sure there was nothing unusual with it, Su-mo closed the small door, covered it with soil, and went back to the front door. The underground ruins were 3.5 kilometers from the shelter as the crow flies. They would get there in half an hour if they did not take detours. Let's hurry and explore in broad daylight. We have to get back before the sun goes down. Su-mo trotted forward. Although there were potholes on the ground, he was quite familiar with the nearby terrain, so it was easy to walk on. Oreo, who had been 200 m away from Su-mo, was in charge of patrol and detecting mutants. Woof woof woof. After more than 700 meters of walking, Oreo, who had been calm until then, suddenly barked, making Su-mo tense. Are there monsters? Woof. After getting an affirmative answer from Oreo, Su-mo did not hesitate to activate the first monster illustration handbook scan today. 1. Horned sand wolves *6 were detected 331 m away from the player. Danger factor 48. Please be cautious. Today's count 2/3, Su-mo was stunned. 1. Horned sand wolves, and even 6 of them. Opening the monster illustration handbook, Su-mo did a quick scan and immediately understood the animal's nature. The most common mutant beasts food sold in the trading market were sand wolves. As animals who live in packs, they were not very effective in fighting. A normal adult male with one weapon could easily beat 2 sand wolves. Sand wolves' rate of return was extremely high. Not only would you get meat, but also sand wolf skin and sand wolf blood. You might even get treasure chests. Licking his lips, Suemo calmed himself down and had an idea. He took out his crossbow from his storage bag. The energetic Oreo immediately showed its professional fighting qualities after running into enemies. Keeping its head low, sniffing the scent, and moving its ears to listen from time to time. The man and the dog did not move very fast. Before long, Suemo, who had minimized the sound of his footsteps, saw the sand wolves lying under a big rock 100 meters away, trying to hide from the natural disaster. Phew! It turns out that these animals also have a natural tendency to seek good and avoid harm. With the help of his good eyesight, Suemo saw 4 sand wolves lying on the ground resting. The other 2 sand wolves were looking around warily. Seeing Suemo in the distance, the sand wolves froze for a moment and began to howl in panic. Swoosh! The crossbow arrow went through its throat and took the life of the sand wolf that was howling. Quickly winding the crossbow, Suemo observed the remaining 5 sand wolves. After being attacked, the sand wolves all got up and growled in Suemo's direction. They tried to be as threatening as possible, bluffing by having so many companions around. Unfortunately, the sand wolves were aware of the power of acid rain. The water spots on the ground made them afraid of taking the initiative to attack and could only rage helplessly where they stood. What a good opportunity! After he was done winding the crossbow, he took aim, and the crossbow arrow was fired once again, taking away another sand wolf's life. The 4 remaining sand wolves began to howl in dismay. One of them even tried to escape, but when his foot touched the damp ground, he retracted his foot as if it had just touched fire. Suemo raised his brow when he saw what the sand wolf did. I had full view the first time I used the crossbow. The second time, the enemy couldn't move at all. I'm so lucky. H did not know if he should call the sand wolves smart or stupid. They had no idea why a distant figure could shoot one arrow after another. With Oreo threatening them at the side, the sand wolves could do nothing but stand there like sitting ducks. Die. With no effort at all, Suemo harvested a pack of sand wolves by using only 6 crossbow arrows. In the distance, 6 sand wolves gave him 2 treasure chests. One of wood and one of iron. Even without going into the underground ruin, he had gained something from the trip. He went closer and retrieved all the crossbow arrows stuck on the sand wolves. Then he loaded all the sand wolves into the storage space. Wagging its head, Oreo came to Suemo's feet, showing off its exploits. Suemo touched Oreo's head and laughed. The meat is all yours after I have taken care of them when we get back. Don't worry. I won't fight you for them. Woof woof woof. Oreo was so excited that it rubbed its head against Suemo's palm. Record. You opened the wooden treasure chest. Record. You have gained Fanta Soda *1. Record. You have gained Master Kong Old Altar Pickled Beef Noodle *1. As the wooden chest's light faded, a bottle of soda and a cup of instant noodles were left behind. Slurp. At the sight of the instant noodles on the ground, Suemo instantly felt the saliva running in his mouth, and his taste buds burst as if he had absorbed instant noodles' rich soup. With reluctant eyes, he put the 2 items into the storage space. Suemo looked forward to the iron treasure chest. Record. You opened the iron treasure chest. Record. You have gained Workbench Blueprint *1. Record. You have gained a simple clamp *1. Record. You have gained a beaker *1. A series of resources popped up with the prompts. A blue blueprint, a forearm-length iron clamp, and a beaker made of glass appeared on the ground. The workbench blueprint has no use for now, but I'll study it first. After picking up the blueprint and crumpling it up to study it, Suemo grabbed 2 more items and threw them into the storage space. What a pity. I should have built the ranged weapon sooner if I had known. But I'm lucky today. It would have been a headache if these 6 sand wolves were fast moving. Suemo sighed as he straightened up and set off again. The confrontation between 1 man, 1 dog, and 6 wolves, including reaping the spoils, took only about 10 minutes. With favorable conditions, Suemo was confident about their journey ahead. After re-embarking on the journey, he compared the map all the way. This time, Suemo walked 2 kilometers without finding any sign of mutant beasts. Maybe Huang Biao got rid of all the mutant beasts they could handle when they came over. This pack of sand canines was also unlucky. They probably came to this place to take shelter from the rain and were caught alive by me. Suemo, who had been tense all the way, suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. In the distance, he could already see the terrain symbol marked on the map. Chapter 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did someone get here first? First time exploring the ruins. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Stopping down, Suemo began to look around. Along the way, Suemo felt a noticeable fluctuation as he lay flat on his stomach. If I'm not mistaken, I'm in a basin. They were 3 kilometers away. Looking at the road they came, the distance had become blurry, and the horizon had hidden part of the scenery. Looking west, he could feel the slope of the terrain rising. After taking a good look around, Suemo found the site of the ruins. Is this where the prehistoric ruins are? It was a terrain almost identical to the shelter. There was also a small hill where the underground ruins were located. There was no perfect drainage facility around it because of the terrain, which led to the large pools of water. Of course, if there were no markings on the map and the existence of the ruins, it would be the perfect place to build a shelter by choosing it as the foundation and adding pipes to clear the water. Woof woof woof. Oreo retreated from the distance and asked his master for advice. Because of more than a day of heavy rain, the water near the ruins was so deep that Oreo could not cross it even in his raincoat. Looking at Oreo's frightened expression, Suemo said without hesitation. We have to figure out this shelter. It's the only known treasure spot near us. Wait here for me. I'll go there alone. Woof. Oreo wagged its tail, not wanting to be separated from its master. Bending over and rubbing Oreo's head, Suemo comforted it. Don't worry. Keep watch for your master outside. The acid rain inside is scary. Once you touch it. Hiss. Your fur's gone. Oreo, who was still eager to have a try, was immediately shocked by Suemo. Its eyes showed a feeling of fear, grievance, and reluctance to part with him. It simply stayed squatted in the same place and shook its big tail. Standing up, Suemo took a deep breath, pulled out his raincoat from the storage space, and started putting it on. The flowing raincoat did not hinder regular movements at all. After inspecting to ensure there were no leaks, Suemo began to wade through the water 1 step at a time. It was still about 200 meters from where the hill was. The water level was over his feet. As a precaution, Suemo decided to walk around the hill to get behind it and try to explore in a direction that was less prone to the water pooling first. The plain soil had never been solid, had become mud under the rain. Suemo walked every step with great difficulty. A small part of his leg would even get stuck sometimes, and he had to spend a lot of effort to pull it out. Wading through the water, he walked for about 20 minutes only to have gone around 150 meters. As they reached higher terrain, the soil began to harden, and the water gradually disappeared. However, various footprints on the ground made Suemo tense. The footprints looked fresh and could be seen clearly in the heavy rain. There were footprints split into 2 toes and a bunch of feline footprints. A few hairs could be seen occasionally in the crevices of the soil. Crouching on the ground, Suemo carefully picked up the hair in the cracks and looked at it carefully. It does look like feline fur. With this flexibility, it's definitely not a regular animal. With a restless heart, Suemo clicked on the game panel and pressed Monster Illustration Handbook for the second time today. No mutant beast presence detected within 1,000-meter radius of the player. Today's count 1/3, that's strange. In theory, felines should be very territorial. This can't be its territory. Felines used claw scratches and urine to mark the boundaries of their territory and tell other animals when they passed to avoid accidental meetings and conflicts. After looking around, Suemo shook his head. He could not find markings nearby. Is this blood? Touching the side of the hill, Suemo found a pool of blood that had seeped into the ground. He lowered his head and smelled the smell of the ground. Other than the stench of the earth after a rainy day, he could smell a trace of blood. There was also a lot of hair near the blood. And a place that had been bombarded. What's this? Holy shit, was this bombarded by a grenade? The further he went to the side of the hill, the more traces of animals there were. When Suemo got around to the left, he was shocked to see scorched marks on the ground. The grass beside the marks was still green, but nothing was growing in the center of the marks. The area that was bombarded was extremely unusual. According to the diameter of the center of the explosion, it was only about 50 centimeters. Besides, the land was not blown up, which made no sense for a fixed-point bomb or a hand-thrown grenade. Suemo had a bad feeling. He walked quickly back to the middle of the hill and walked to the top of it. As he neared the end, there were more bombardment marks. Besides, a big dark hole was blasted out at the front. Did someone get here first? Fetching a flashlight from the storage space and turning it on, Suemo peered into the hole. It was more than 4 meters from the hole to the ground. It was almost the same height as the shelter. The building here gave Suemo a sense of familiarity. Why does it feel so intensely familiar? Is this not a human shelter? If this were an RPG game, there would be countless question marks hanging over Suemo's head. How about getting down there to check it out? A bold idea flourished like crazy after popping out of Suemo's mind. Everything here was too strange. The inexplicable feline fur, the small bombardments at several points, and the design of structures that mimicked a human shelter all added a sense of mystery to the underground ruins. After opening the storage space and searching around, Suemo decided to use the original method of weaving a hemp rope. It was more than 4 meters high. It was easy to jump down but difficult to come back up. Taking out 2 units of plant fiber and sitting at the hole, Suemo began to weave the hemp rope. In less than 20 minutes, Suemo had woven a rope about 3 meters long by repeatedly winding strands of tough plant fibers down it. Taking out 2 units of iron and putting them on the ground, he tied a section of the hemp rope to the iron, and a simple up and down device was completed. At this moment, Suemo was glad that he had joined a DIY craft club in college. Otherwise, this simple job would have been a little difficult for ordinary people to do. After putting away everything, Suemo tried throwing pebbles around. After making sure that there was no mechanism, Suemo began to explore the ruins for the first time. He had read a lot about tomb raiding in novels, but it was difficult to actually do it. Awkwardly biting the flashlight in his mouth, Suemo grabbed the rope and began to slide down. The rough touch of the plant fibers greatly increased the friction of the slide. Suemo had to put a lot of effort into getting a good grip of it in each slide. When there was only 1 meter left, Suemo released and naturally fell to the ground. After holding his breath for a long time, Suemo gasped heavily as soon as he recovered. However, when he lifted his head and looked ahead by the light of his flashlight, he felt a thump in his heart. 1 person, times, a skeleton, square root. He had just got rid of 5 hoodlums last night but looking at a skull that had fallen on the ground looking sideways at him. There was a burst of cool air behind him. Chapter 39. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A car. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The skull on the ground did not snort, nor did fire burst from its eye sockets, shouting, "How dare you," rising from the ground and screaming. "Doth thee dareth dismount and square me?" It just lay sideways on the ground and looked at him with empty eyes. Ednel.co. He knew in his heart that everyone already knew that the world was very different from what they knew before after transmigrating. However, it was hard to avoid feeling waves of fear seeing a skeleton scattered on the ground with his own eyes. After all, humans had a natural fear of the supernatural. Sumo's heart was churning quickly as he looked at what was before him. He moved his steps gently, trying to avoid the skull's line of sight. Crack. Sumo carefully took a step to the left but accidentally stepped on an object on the ground that gave a loud crack. He looked down and immediately felt his scalp tingling. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to disturb you. Sorry." After being trampled by Sumo, a white bone arm had broken in half, opening a gash down the middle. Sumo looked around by the light. Not only the arm but the floor was littered with bone fragments. "I wonder who it is. It's so sad." Sumo smiled wryly at the intact skull lying on the ground as he moved away from the broken bones on his right. The floor of the ruin seemed to be made out of concrete, and plenty of feline fur could be seen scattered on the ground. After thinking about it, Sumo took out the last unused torch from his inventory and chose to light it. It was scary to use the flashlight in the dark ruins. It was as if he was raiding a tomb. Almost resembling a horror movie if you added the BGM. As bright flames appeared over the ruins, Sumo finally had time to take a good look around. The house of this ruin was small, and Sumo could faintly see the things inside from near the main door. Focusing, Sumo sadly discovered that, for some reason, the game panel's identification function and the survival system's identification function had been turned off. It was more like an underground shelter than a ruin. Record my shelter as shelter number 1 and refer this underground ruin as shelter number 2 for the time being. Opening his usual private messages, Sumo found the friends he had added earlier and began to write down what he saw and heard. Memories could deceive, words could not. After writing down what he had seen, maybe he could figure out where the loopholes were after getting back to the shelter and analyze it. Upon reaching the main door, the first exploration description began to appear in the chat box. Doomsday Calendar Month 1 Day 6, entering shelter number 2 for the first time. Shelter number 2 is made of iron or steel of unknown materials according to simple touch and sound. The feeling is similar to the alloy doors of the civilization era. The strength is yet to be tested, and there is no trace of leakage. The wall is made of unknown materials. According to observation, it's initially suspected to be the product of reinforced concrete or unknown architectural stone. It's extremely strong. Observing from the hole at the top, the thickness of the wall is about 25 centimeters. There are mysterious patterns on the floor, with different quantities and shapes. There are no symmetrical patterns for reference or any communication. No specific reference value at present, emphasis, need to investigate. There are dozens of unknown feline fur, picked up, a humanoid skeleton, cannot be determined to be human, to be investigated. There are scattered tables around, overturned utensils on the floor, no paper records, and I can't use the game panel to view the properties. The reason is unknown. Combined with previous signs, it is highly likely that it has been explored by an unknown presence, emphasis. Explosives, fur, and most of the valuable objects have been removed or destroyed. At the innermost side of the shelter is an abandoned deep well similar to the psychic energy water well. At first smell, it gave off a strange fragrance. It's a little overwhelming, but it makes you happy after you smelled it. I smell it again and think that. It smells like blueberry jam. I smell it again and think that. It smells like the spectacular Chinese photinia in spring. Su-mo, oh Su-mo. How can you let yourself indulge in it? Have you forgotten what you came here for? I smell it again and think that. Cross out the whole paragraph. I tried to lift the abandoned well manually but found that the method was wrong, and the device was stuck. The cause is unknown, prioritized investigation. At the corner of the shelter, there was a straight stairway heading downstairs. There was a small amount of feline fur on the stairs and was stuck on the edge. Collect. 14 steps down the stairs, and I found the second floor of the shelter. Emphasis. Did I find a car from the civilized era? Holding a torch and remembering the smell of the abandoned well while taking notes, Su-mo froze. As Su-mo's focus dissipated, the game panel began to fade into view. However, none of this caught Su-mo's attention. Because on the underground second floor, Su-mo immediately saw the vehicles placed in the middle. Isn't this the buggy in PUBG? Behind the vehicle frame, reinforced with a triangular roll cage, sat an engine smaller than a generator but much more demonstrably detailed. It had a single seat and even a luxurious convertible with ventilation on all sides with no glass restrictions so that the driver could fully feel the touch of nature when driving. The overall shape was obviously like a buggy except that the tire was flat, and there were several dents on the frame due to external force. Human civilization. Su-mo had no idea. If it had not been ransacked, perhaps the details inside would have led him to the owner's identity. However, this mess had destroyed any possibility of finding out the identity. Even around the second floor. Is that a card word? Looking at a pictograph of car on the left side of the wall, Su-mo subconsciously looked at the only buggy on the second floor. Looking to the right, an arrow-shaped indicator pointed right at the buggy car in the center. The meaning was self-evident. Does the owner of the ruin want to send a message with this car? Su-mo frowned, trying to think as much as he could about what he had missed when he came down. From the Liangfang town in the misty ruins to the underground ruins, it seemed to be traces left by his own kind. Others were playing violent pushing games, while he was the only one solving mental puzzles. Su-mo had an idea and began to connect and analyze all the details after entering the ruin. Time passed. One speculation after another was denied, and all the clues led to one place. Shaking his head, Su-mo hurried over to the buggy's tank, where he decided to test his hypothesis based on the instructions. Unfortunately, after opening the lid of the tank to take a look, sure enough, the oil in the tank had already evaporated. He could use the diesel from the shelter as fuel for the buggy, but there was too little storage space for him to take it with him when he came out. I wonder if there's diesel or gasoline in here. If the buggy was in good condition and working, he could go anywhere in this world. Holding the torch, Su-mo was about to carefully squat on the ground to search for a diesel bucket. However, there was suddenly a great noise outside. Woof woof woof-a-woo. Woof. Woof. First came Oreo's signature barking, followed by two very strange, human-like barks. Oh no. It's Oreo's warning. There are people outside. Su-mo instead put out the torch, took out his well-strung crossbow, and darted off to the first floor. Chapter 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This world is too insane. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Without the bright flame of the torch or the white light of the flashlight, the entire shelter number 2 was pitch black, with only a little light shining through a large hole on the first floor. Outside, Oreo's barking continued, but the other two barks changed their pitch. For some reason, Su-mo heard a human emotion from the two barks. Are they making fun of it? Or is it contempt? Step by step, Su-mo walked steadily on the steps in the dark, the human fear in his eyes fading rapidly, replaced by a touch of beastly calmness. He focused, and the game panel appeared. He clicked on the illustration handbook scanning function. No mutant beast presence detected within 1,000-meter radius of the player. Today's count 0 to 3, he had run out of chances and failed to scan the face of the creatures outside. Su-mo got tenser. Crouching at the corner between the first and second floors, Su-mo positioned his crossbow on the railing at the stairway and quietly aimed at the hole where he got down from. A woof, hearing Orio's panic and aggrieved voice and another barking of contempt outside, Su-mo bit his lip. Run, Oreo. Let them in. Su-mo silently roared to himself, wishing that Oreo would be wise enough to run away. If the enemy was alone, Su-mo had the confidence to charge out and confront them. However, once the number of unknown creatures exceeds 1, humans could only defeat them by relying on their intelligence, which was different from beasts. Suddenly, Oreo's high-pitched cry rang, followed by 2 more short cries and then another high-pitched cry. Su-mo's calm face lit up with joy at the sound. It was at the shelter that Su-mo taught Oreo its first letter for 2 days while they could not go outside. In Morse code, it was the first letter of running, R. It meant there was a strong enemy outside and detour. Sure enough, after Oreo finished that note, 2 joyful barks rang outside. Su-mo watched along the gaping hole closely. 2 footsteps hit the soil, and the sound of footsteps on the ground had already faintly rung in the hole, and Su-mo could hear it after it reflected off the wall. Lighter than my footstep. Not very heavy. My initial suspicion is that it's an animal that can walk upright. It did not matter if he did not know how to differentiate from the sound. After a while of careful listening, Su-mo was relieved by his comparison. The footsteps were crisp in the front and back. They were not at all canine mammals and were akin to a human. The voice was very soft, indicating that they were not heavyweight and did not possess overwhelming strength and speed. 1 second. 2 seconds. As the sound got closer and closer, the 2 unidentified creatures finally approached the mouth of the cave. Woof a woo hiss hiss woof woo woof deet woof chi woof. Woof poof woof bing woof hiss woo woo woof. The 2 pieces of iron and rope obviously attracted the attention of the unknown creature, and a headachingly inexplicable sound came through the opening. I can't understand them. Su-mo could only concentrate and carefully analyze the 2 creatures' moods from the voice. Fortunately, the second creature's tone was assured. The first one was a little doubtful, but they got over it after saying something. Su-mo's heart was hanging in the air, afraid that 2 monsters would be waiting for him at the mouth of the cave or that more monsters would be called over to use the huge crowd strategy. 2 stupid dogs. Oh no, 2 people were obviously not very intelligent. Even the braver one was already hanging on to Su-mo's rope and walked down. In the bright part of the hole, a black leg covered in fur had appeared in Su-mo's view. A boot made of an unknown material was wrapped around the foot. It's so thin they look like 2 bamboo monsters. They probably won't be much of a fight. Holding the crossbow by the rear handle, Su-mo put his finger on the trigger and stared at the figure that was about to land. Benoel another small leg dropped, and the figure appeared in a long animal skin dressed like a primitive man. Before Su-mo could continue his observation, the monster suddenly dropped sharply, and its whole body came into view. Holy shit! Su-mo had a clear view of the monster because of the light in the cave. The horror in his heart almost drove him to scream. Is this a kobold? The monster that slid down had a scaly upper body. The color changed from dark brown on the lower part of the body to black on the upper part. If not examined carefully, the head looked slightly like an abstract dog head. It had 2 small pale horns, shining eyes, and a straight rat tail. Coupled with the monster's sound earlier, Su-mo knew almost instantly that these 2 monsters were the legendary monsters that everyone was familiar with in games. Kobold. Woof hiss hiss hiss. Su-mo forcibly resisted the impulse to shoot. He calmly watched the kobold, who had just slipped down and was shouting for its partner. One spear was dropped and taken by the kobold, who came down first. Another wooden stick dropped, and the kobold placed it on the ground. Then a second kobold began to slide down the rope. They were probably from different breeds. The second kobold's legs were streaked with blood, rising from its ankles to its profile. The latter kobold seemed to have a more delicate hide skirt, having a subtle aristocratic feeling. When both got down, kobold number 1 kicked the miserable skull aside, making way for the aristocratic kobold. When all was done, the aristocratic kobold patted the dust off itself, picked up its wooden stick, and began to look around. At the same time, Sumo looked away and lowered his head gently, allowing the railings of the staircase to block the kobold's view. It was not easy to see in the dark from a bright area. However, Sumo dared not gamble it. The world is too insane. Do you know what kobolds are? Biologists would have been ecstatic, shouting that they had discovered a new intelligent animal. However, without extensive testing, they could only give a rough rundown of the habits of this new creature. Fortunately, the two kobolds did not seem to care at all whether there was anyone inside. They just started rummaging around inside shelter number 2. Should I kill kobold number 1 or the aristocratic kobold first? After a moment's hesitation, Sumo decided to kill the kobold with the spear first. Under these circumstances, he could only take one shot with the crossbow arrow. He would not have time to reload the crossbow. Therefore, the first monster to get rid of was of course the one that posed the greatest threat. Of the two, Sumo chose the kobold number 1, who was the easiest to identify and also appeared to be holding a murder weapon. He looked up and stared at the kobold number 1, who was rummaging under the table. Sumo's finger was on the trigger. Slightly moving the angle of the crossbow, Sumo made each move as slow and as steady as possible, making sure that no sound of metal against metal was heard. The two cute kobolds had no response at all. They were still talking and searching. They were trying to find something valuable enough. Swoosh! A shrill sound suddenly rang in the dark shelter. Then a splash of blood erupted from kobold number 1's neck. The acid rain-coated crossbow arrow almost killed it right away. Unprotected by skin, it rapidly eroded kobold number 1's fragile veins. The next moment, all you could hear in the shelter was the sound of blood trickling. After checking thrice and deciding that kobold number 1 was no longer a threat, Sumo stepped onto the first floor in 2 steps instead of 3. He hurled his crossbow hard at the aristocratic kobold to disrupt his line of sight. He focused and summoned the Japanese oak spear before rushing over. Hiya! Hiya! You darn thing! Watch me puncture you! Ah 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 ah! Sumo let go of all his power and screamed as hard as he could as he charged forward. The thunderous cry echoed back and forth through shelter number 2 like a dull thunder roar, making people's eardrums hurt. The kobold on the other side was also scared by the noise. It stopped what it was doing and almost fell over. However, Sumo was still too slow when he charged forward. The darkness of the shelter and the obstacles at his feet made him afraid to do so without any hesitation. It also gave the aristocratic kobold a chance to catch its breath. A flash of fire started to converge in the kobold's hand, and before Sumo could reach it, it had turned into a small fireball. F***ck. What is this?